We have been made only too knowledgeable of the many deaths and deformities caused by both the medical and pharmaceutical professions to feel comfortable in continuing to genuflect to the high priests of medicine with the same degree of awe they expected of us in the past. As a result, a growing number of people are turning to homeopathy and holistic medicine, a revolution seeded by the popularity of books about the sleeping prophet Edgar Cayce, and further fruited by the flower children and the back to nature movement of the 60s, which hasn't faded into oblivion but is gathering more apostles every year. We don't want to lose our good doctors, and we don't want the historic swinging pendulum to swing us all the way back to the elixirs and leeches of the 19th century. We'd like a happy medium if possible, a change in the direction of medicine able to give us what medicine has always promised and never delivered, which is permanent good health, by giving priority to the practice of prevention over diagnosis and treatment, as does homeopathy and medical astrology. We wouldn't even have the medical profession's current semi-approval of acupuncture if former President Richard Nixon hadn't been ailing when he visited China and became convinced of its effectiveness. No, we don't want to swing back to the 19th century's medical practices, but swinging back to even before then, to ancient China, might not be so bad. There were 3 types of doctors in ancient China. The first kind merely cured your disease and was the least of the 3. The second was an expert in diagnosing an illness, not only after it appeared, but earlier, shortly before it appeared. He was higher on the medical ladder. The most skilled, most venerable, and most respected physician was the one who kept his patients so healthy that they never manifested any form of sickness in the first place, a Taoist ideal. This medical caste system was nothing if not logical. And it went further. A doctor in ancient China, turn back the clock, was paid only when his patients got well, when he had healed them, and in some districts the doctor was under strict obligation to make economic amends or restitution should a patient become worse or continue to be ill under his care, because it was considered that if he had not kept his patients healthy, then their diseases were fully his responsibility. Every time a patient died, a lantern of a certain shape was hung outside the attending doctor's office, and a doctor with too many of these lanterns swinging at the front door could be assured of a slow business. Physicians who complain today about the high insurance caused by malpractice suits should be glad they weren't practicing in ancient China, when the doctors were blamed for everything unjustly, and the patients given no responsibility for their own mental attitudes causing their illnesses to linger. Why must everything be one extreme or the other? A little of each would be nice, with physicians and patients taking equal responsibility for good health. If I may be permitted a respectful suggestion to the medical profession, physicians and surgeons would benefit by paying more attention to the founding father of their profession, Hippocrates, who based his knowledge on astrology. Every doctor, upon being presented with his or her medical degree, in whatever specialty, before taking over the authoritative role of dictating to us about our own bodies, surely a precious and privately owned possession, takes the Hippocratic Oath. Therefore, is it too much to ask that the wisdom of this founding father's counsel be respected and followed in the practice of medicine? Consider some of that wisdom from Hippocrates. He wrote in his diaries that he who practices medicine without the benefit of the movement of the stars and planets is a fool. No pussyfooting around with innuendos or Greek double talk there. Much like the well-known legal adage that he who represents himself in a court of law has a fool for a lawyer. Hippocrates further stated firmly this warning: touch not with iron that part of the body ruled by the sign the moon is transiting. His counsel may need some interpretation for the medical people who have ignored the astrological wisdom of their founding father for so long they haven't a clue as to how to translate his words. It means this: one does not perform a surgical procedure with a knife, which is iron, upon a part of the patient's body which is ruled by, or associated with, the astrological sign through which the moon is moving at the time. The moon remains in one sign approximately 2.5 days, and this information can be easily obtained from an ephemeris calculated by astronomers or a farmer's almanac. According to Hippocrates, and proven repeatedly in surgery, disobeying this law will inevitably result in one of 3 failures of any surgery performed at the wrong time. Number 1, complications including infection. Number 2, unusually slow and painful healing and recuperation. And number 3, fatality. The last of the 3 possible results of disobedience of the law is behind the too frequent and well-known medical explanation that the operation was a success, but the patient died. In the case of number 3, death can result from any number of causes, including the anesthetic administered. The results of number 1 and number 2 are by far more frequent, and result number 3 is rare. Nevertheless, observing the warning of Hippocrates is clearly the wisest course. Some examples: when the moon is in Taurus, ruling the neck and throat, one should not perform a tonsillectomy. When the moon is passing through Scorpio, ruler of the reproductive organs, a prostate operation or hysterectomy, removal of the tubes, ovaries, or uterus, should not be performed. When the moon is in Capricorn or Aries, the former ruling the teeth and bones, the latter ruling the head in general, no dental surgery or other surgery related to the bones or any part of the head should be performed, and so on. Later in this chapter is a list of the various parts of the body ruled by each of the 12 signs. Personally, I never accept anything counseled by anyone without first investigating its validity, and that includes the astrological advice of Hippocrates. But unlike the medical profession's attitude toward the stars and planets, neither do I disbelieve it until I've checked into it to a satisfactory degree. I investigated the counsel of Hippocrates concerning this particular law and found it to be valid each time. I'll give only a few examples here among the many instances I've checked. Jeff Chandler, a film star of the 50s, entered the hospital to undergo spinal surgery for a slipped disc. It was a common and comparatively simple surgical procedure, requiring only a few days of hospitalization. He died on the operating table for unknown causes. That day the moon was transiting the sign of Leo, ruler of the heart, the back, and the spinal column. Bertha Todd, first wife of the producer of Around the World in 80 Days, Michael Todd, who was later married to Elizabeth Taylor, cut her finger on a broken glass. The next day she decided to go to the emergency room of a Los Angeles hospital and have the cut closed with a few stitches by the intern on duty. A minor bit of surgical attention. On the way to the hospital, Bertha and her attorney stopped for coffee at the Beverly Hills drugstore. When they arrived at the emergency room, Bertha was afraid the stitching might be painful, so she requested an anesthetic. She was given 2, but they weren't effective. The third one took Bertha out of the realm of all pain. She died within minutes. That day, the moon was transiting the sign of Gemini, ruler of the shoulders, arms, hands, and fingers. With Bertha Todd and Jeff Chandler, the operations were a success, but the patient died. A close friend of mine in Pittsburgh sent both of her children to the hospital at her doctor's suggestion that they have simultaneous tonsillectomies. One was suffering from a severe tonsil inflammation. the other less severe. It was during the time not so long ago when physicians advised wholesale surgery of this kind, which they've only recently counseled against. If you had 4 children, might as well stuff them all into green nightshirts and yank out their tonsils at one time. Those who didn't need it, then, were sure to need it eventually, quote. Only later did the medical people decide that tonsils have a job to perform in the body and should never be removed except for excellent cause. Back then, the wholesale removal was recommended. It was more efficient and practical. And there was also the advantage of a cut rate of the surgeon's fee for multiple removal, as opposed to the expense of a single tonsillectomy. The day the 2 children entered the hospital, the moon was transiting the sign of Taurus, which is, as I've already mentioned, ruler of the neck and throat. One child developed a severe infection as a complication of surgery, which was touch and go for a while, but he eventually responded to treatment with antibiotics. The other child, a girl, endured a long recuperation, 5 weeks in the hospital, during which time it was discovered that a piece of tonsil remained and had to be removed in a second surgical procedure later. The medical community openly confesses that at least 5% of all deaths in hospitals are unexplainable. Could the Astrological Council of Hippocrates explain them? They will never know until they make an attempt to find out. Doctors needn't suddenly leap into practicing the wisdom of Hippocrates by becoming astrologers. That's expecting too much. But the very least of the obligations implied by their Hippocratic Oath would be a carefully controlled observation of past patient case histories and current surgical operations to check the results. All they need is an ephemeris or an almanac, and a few brief words of instruction from any competent astrologer. Since the moon remains in any particular sign for only about 2.5 days, a necessary, many of them are not, operation need not be postponed for a great length of time by those who respect Hippocrates. If the medical profession won't protect its patients, they can perhaps protect themselves by scheduling their own operations, giving the doctors some plausible excuse, such as, if I don't take my vacation this week, I won't be able to take it at all this year. It postpones the surgery for only 3 days, doctor. Or, it's more convenient for me and for my family to have my surgery next Friday instead of next Tuesday. All any patient needs to beat the system is an imaginative excuse, an ephemeris or almanac, plus a healthy respect for his or her own body, a realization that it doesn't belong to the medical trust to do with as they please, but to one's own self. It wouldn't be wise to request a rescheduling of surgery by saying, "You see, doctor, my astrologer says." The medical community isn't quite that enlightened yet, on the whole. Maybe soon. Assuming you get lucky and find a doctor who will be at least partially sympathetic to your views about the no-no dates for surgery, he or she may ask you why this should be. Here is the foundation behind the counsel of Hippocrates concerning, quote, touch not with iron that part of the body ruled by the astrological sign the moon is transiting, end quote. Even the stuffiest scientists now recognize and realize that the moon controls the ocean's tides, as well as the timing of the opening and closing of oysters. Any police chief can tell you that the department dreads the nights of the full moon, because it brings on a great tide of criminal activity, filling up the police blotters with double or triple the number of crimes compared to other times. The moon also controls the monthly menstrual cycles of women. Now, since it's a recognized fact that the moon has the power to move around all the great bodies of water in the oceans on Earth, and since it's an equally recognized fact that more than 85% of the human body consists of water, the moon controls your body and emotions to a degree most people don't suspect. Surgery interrupts the as yet undiscovered tidal flows in the body by the unnatural process of opening up the body and allowing air to enter. Consequently, those parts of the body which are ruled by whatever astrological sign the moon is transiting at the time are especially sensitive and vulnerable. That should explain the counsel of Hippocrates sufficiently to even the most closed medical minds, let alone to an open-minded physician or surgeon. Medicine has always treated the disease the patient has. Medical astrology and homeopathy treat the patient who has the disease, and there's a vast and vital difference. Your individual birth chart, nativity or horoscope, indicates at the moment of your first breath of life on this earth the weak links in your body's chain reactions. That's why medical astrology is more concerned with the diagnosis and prevention of disease than with treatment. If it's known at birth that a baby's nativity indicates a strong predisposition to diabetes, for example, the parents can control the diet of this small human early enough to prevent the adult the child will become from ever developing diabetes. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure is a true adage. Remember that the stars incline, they do not compel. Translated, that means that your nativity or horoscope shows which diseases and accidents to which parts of your personal body you are inclined to suffer. If you take the proper preventative measures, these astrological birth warnings will have accomplished their purpose, and you need not become ill in the manner indicated in the horoscope as the body's inclination. But if you do not take such preventative measures, for the reason that you're ignorant of your own nativity's warnings, then your body will be inclined to respond to the electromagnetic pulls, and what were originally only possibilities will then become realities. There is nothing fatalistic about astrology. The behavior of humans is where the responsibility for predictive tragedy lies. Their refusal to heed the warnings of the birth chart or to take the astrological advice that would prevent the occurrence of all negative events foreshadowed in the horoscope, not just those concerning health. Medical astrology provides the medical profession, if they would only accept and recognize it, with the true original cause of the breakdown of certain organs in each individual's body. Every physical illness, without a single exception, is the result of the initial cause of certain mental and emotional attitudes. As just two of these, for example, the emotional seeding that causes arthritis is resentment, bitterness, and frustration held inside, controlled, and not allowed to express itself outwardly. Be honest, say what you feel, or get a punching bag. Heart disease and heart attacks are caused by the lonely longing resulting from not being loved, the inability to give or return love, or the inability to love one's self. The emotion of love and the human organ of the heart are inseparable. Anger is deadly and swift in its effect. When you become really violently angry with someone or about something, I mean a raging fury, whether or not it's justified and whether or not it's held in or allowed to spill out, it nevertheless creates bile. And the bile buildup triggered by the anger seldom takes more than a few months, sometimes only weeks. The result, an excruciatingly painful gallbladder attack, and the manifestation of gallstones. It's a dreadful and painful price to pay for anger. Forgiveness is as practical as it is spiritual, since it not only strengthens the soul, it keeps the body healthy. If you've ever suffered a gallbladder attack, if you've ever had gallstones, ask yourself with whom or with what you were furiously angry a few weeks or few months prior to the attack. It shouldn't be hard to remember. The memory of anger or rage strong enough to create bile, whether suppressed or expressed, stays with you a while. Think hard about it. It will surprise you and also teach you an important lesson about uncontrollable rage. It also affects the spleen. Why do you think bile and spleen are used to describe violent emotions? Your birth chart infallibly reveals not just your susceptibility to particular diseases and accidents, not just the organs composing the weak links in your body's chain reactions, but also the mental and emotional attitudes responsible for causing specified parts of your body to attract accident or infection. Beyond this, the birth chart contains the knowledge of the timing of illness and possible accident, indicating when you'll be the most vulnerable to one or the other, so that they can be prevented or circumvented through an advanced change in your individual mental and or emotional behavior indicated to be the initiatory cause. If accident or disease has already occurred, the nativity will indicate which mental or emotional attitudes must be changed to reverse the progress of the illness or promote swifter healing of the body parts which have undergone accident. Sometimes your own instincts can cause such a reversal, producing what doctors call spontaneous remission, the medical term used when no apparent cause for recovery can be found. Astrology accurately analyzes character, personality, physical strengths and weaknesses, and much more, but is equally helpful as a timing device. Never forget that what you eat and what you think is what you are. The food taken into your body is what gradually, slowly but surely, forms your thought patterns. And your thoughts, both conscious and subconscious, are in absolute control of your body's health or lack of it. An apple a day, as the old adage goes, may well keep the doctor away, because fruit is the food most beneficial to your body's well-being. It's good to become a vegetarian, but the ultimate goal is to become a fruitarian, and eventually a part-time breatharian, gaining all your body's needs from the very air you breathe, assuming one can find any smog-free air these days, except in places like Cripple Creek, Colorado, 10,000 feet above sea level, with pure, clean air. The person striving for perfect and permanent good health finally graduates into becoming a full-time fruitarian and part-time breatharian, no longer needing to kill life in order to sustain life. The so-called food chain, destroying life to maintain life, is not as holy and nature-endorsed a pattern as you've been programmed to believe, nor as necessary as you've been taught. Reaching that ultimate in well-being cannot be accomplished overnight. It takes at least 15 years, and a change of attitude or thought patterns. Deciding to become an instant vegetarian, for example, after eating meat for many years, can shock the body into severe illness, as happens only too often, causing people to mistakenly believe that vegetarianism is bad for you. Before beginning the course of becoming a vegetarian, it's first necessary to desire to do so for the correct reasons. The first reason is genuine compassion for our animal brothers and sisters. It will save a lot of time if I quote here from an interview in the New York Times with an unenlightened rancher, feeling perhaps the beginning sensations of compassion, but not yet illuminated to the truth of the cruelty of butchery and ranching. In the interview, the rancher was discussing his cows with the reporter. He talked about how small calves are raised in terms of expenses, profit, and loss, how much you need to get for their dead bodies and the dead bodies of cows and steers, calves, liver, hamburger, steak, and roast beef, in order to earn a living for yourself as a rancher. Everything he said in the interview applies also to mother and baby sheep and pigs, lamb chops, pork chops, ham, and bacon. You know, the rancher said to the reporter, you can almost get sentimental about these little fellers. Do you know, he continued, that the mother cows can tell their own calves in a head of 1,000 or more? And did you know that when we separate them calves into the shipping corrals, the mothers stand there outside by the fence just shrieking and bellowing in sounds you ain't never heard no cow make, as if they know what's happening. Sometimes they'll just stand there for a week or more after the calves are gone without eating nothing at all. Some of them, their throats get raw from all that bellowing, and they can't swallow. Time comes, you have to drive those mother cows away from there or they'll starve themselves to death. More loss, no profit. Can't allow that. You've been taught that your body must have protein, meat, to be healthy. You've been taught a myth. In plain language, a lie, on a par with the 19th century leeches. No matter what you've been raised to believe, chopping off the head of a turkey or a chicken also brings pain and suffering. Fish die more slowly after their tender mouths are torn by the sharp point of the tackle, or if caught in a net, thrashing around in agony, gasping for air, water to them. Fish are an important part of nature's ecology. They perform vital functions swimming in rivers, streams, lakes, and oceans during their brief lifespan. And by the way, Jesus was not a fisherman. Instead, he magnetized certain of his apostles away from killing sea life by promising to make them fishers of men. There's no record of his eating flesh of any kind himself. As for the fish, not all of them are carnivorous cannibals, eating other fish. Many are vegetarians, existing on algae, seaweed, and other kinds of plant growth in the ocean. Whales eat tons of plankton, which also provides more than 70% of the oxygen humans breathe, and which is rapidly disappearing from our man-poisoned waters. It's worth noting that the percentage of carnivorous opposed to vegetarian fish closely matches the current percentage of carnivorous opposed to vegetarian humans. There are other meaningful reflections between animal and human habits, and the former imitate the latter, not the other way around. I don't have the time, space, or inclination to fully debate the evolutionists here, but that's the way it is. Gorillas, for instance, are vegetarians and very gentle creatures, as primate expert Diane Fossey discovered by observing them closely for many years. So are chimps, yet when one chimpanzee, in a perverse mood, spontaneously and unnaturally happens to kill a flesh animal and toys around with eating it, though his surprised stomach may make him quickly ill, he is immediately glorified by the other chimps, even though they remain basically vegetarians, feared, respected, and made the dominant male of the group, until another male chimp takes a whim to do the same. Then the new killer becomes the dominant male, a clear mirror reflection of human behavior. There are many examples in the fish and animal world proving that the carnivorous aspect of the, quote, food chain, so holy to biologists, is not a necessity for healthy survival. Jungle animals who eat the flesh of other animals. Regardless of what you learned in school about Darwin's theory, men taught animals to be carnivorous. There was no bloodshed in Eden when this earth was an Eden heaven, many millions of years before the Atlantean, Lemurian, and Paleolithic periods, about which more in Chapter 9. If cows and calves, sheep and lambs, mama and papa and baby monkeys and gorillas, giraffes and hippos can survive in good health as vegetarians, there's no reason why lions, tigers, leopards, and others can't do the same, given enough time to restore their digestive organs back to their original state. Have you ever wondered why the Catholic Church counsels its followers to celebrate Lent by foregoing red meat as a holy thing to do? Since I've given the Catholic Church a few slaps of criticism in this book, it deserves a pat on its ancient back when it's right. The 1987 stand taken by the Roman Church against artificial insemination, surrogate mothers, and test tube babies demonstrates that regarding these moral questions, the Church is vibrating in harmony with universal law. Creating new life without the positive-negative electromagnetic energy force exchanged in a male-female union constitutes definite disobedience to nature's law, which happens to also be the law of our creators, and could have unsuspected and serious repercussions. This is not the place to go into great detail about why. Such a discussion belongs in future books, but meanwhile, one might ordain swift enlightenment so that these spiritually dangerous practices may halt. The Roman Church is likewise right in its stand against the genetic engineering our mad scientists are now performing on flora and fauna, certain to disrupt nature's balances, as it causes great suffering to helpless animals. Sometimes the healing treatments of particular medical people cause one to wonder if we aren't living in what will someday be called the dark ages of medicine. A friend of mine from Colorado fell ill several years ago with a persistent virus she had picked up in the Orient. She grew progressively weaker, and pain consumed her entire body. For a time, she considered the homeopathic treatment recommended by a holistic medical person I told her about, but she finally decided instead to seek help in a series of expensive clinics. The physician at the last clinic placed her on a 30-day diet consisting of nothing but raw meat. I felt a combination of deep sorrow and intense outrage when she died a few months later. It was some time before I could pass a hospital without feeling a flame of anger within myself. Fresh air, fruit and vegetables, and lots of sleep are the requirements for the body to heal itself of illness. So what happens when you're in the hospital for the purpose of becoming ill? The windows are locked tightly with a key, permitting not a single breath of fresh air, as the patient lies there breathing in the very unhealthy carbon monoxide from his or her own breath. Your hospital diet, with very few exceptions, consists of red meat, undercooked and bloody, and often cold. White sugar is used liberally, even in the tuna fish salad in many hospitals. It makes one wonder if the dietitians graduated from a speed course at a fast food chain. Sleep? It's difficult, if not impossible, to sleep so your body can begin its healing process when you're periodically awakened by temperature taking, the schedule designed to fit the hospital's convenience, not yours, and the loudspeakers in each room for calling nurses and doctors jerk you awake, causing the astral to plunge back into the body with a spasm. When your feeling for our fish, fowl, and animal brothers and sisters dawns within your heart and soul, and your mind begins to realize the intense harm done to your body through eating traumatized flesh of all kinds, you can't suddenly become a vegetarian. As I mentioned before, this can be dangerous to your already poisoned system. As I also mentioned earlier, it takes 15 years to complete the cycle. Here's the path recommended by one of my personal avatars, a Hatha Yoga. The number of years is important, related to numerology and related spiritual matters as well as to the physical body's needs. The ideal way to cleanse your body temple of the impurity of years of eating animal flesh is to begin by eliminating all red meat: beef, steak, hamburger, pork, ham, and bacon, for a 5-year period. During this 5-year period, eat both fish and fowl, vegetables and fruits, breads, cereals, and all dairy foods, eggs, milk, cheese. For 1 day each week of these first 5 years, take nothing into your body but fruits and/or natural fruit juices. This allows your body to become gradually accustomed to fruit, avoiding the negative result of your surprised bowels responding with diarrhea. During the second 5-year period, eliminate fish and fowl and eggs, unfertilized chicken embryos, of course, but continue to eat all kinds of vegetables and fruit, breads, cereals, and the dairy foods of milk and cheese. Again, choose 1 day a week to take into your body only fruits and/or fruit juices during this second 5-year period. During the third 5-year period, you will be ready to eliminate all vegetables which grow under the ground, along with red meat, fish, fowl, and eggs. Your diet now consists of only vegetables which grow above the ground: fruit, breads, cereals, milk, and cheese. As with each of the 3 5-year periods, again choose 1 day a week to take into your body only fruits and fruit juices. You have now spent 15 years preparing your physical system to sustain itself on fruit alone, now eliminating all vegetables, all dairy foods, and eating breads and cereals only when you feel the need for them. You have become a fruitarian. Remember that a fruitarian diet must include plenty of tomatoes and nuts of all kinds, along with other fruits. Some people have claimed that fruit is the food placed on this earth from the beginning and the only food the body needs. But you see, fruit is not simply a food. It's not part of the food chain in its usual definition. Essentially, fruit is a cleanser, a purifier of the body. Your body can take care of its own needs involving blood, tissue, and so forth, but it needs the cleansing fruit supplies. I've only known a number of people, mostly gurus, who are pure fruitarians, and they are all amazingly strong and healthy individuals. I'm not quite there myself. I'm only in the second 5-year period. When you've become a fruitarian slowly and safely, the stools and urine have no odor, the skin is clear, the eyes sparkle, and the mind is more alert. The important thing to remember is that vegetarianism and becoming a fruitarian can be harmful to your health unless achieved gradually and gently over a safe 15-year period of purification. Then you can become a breatharian, gaining all that your body needs from the proper breathing of fresh air and prana, the life force energy, and occasionally or periodically eating fruit to cleanse your body of impurities, such as 1 week each month. You may believe it's impossible to survive on the air you breathe, but it can be done under the proper conditions. A woman named Teresa Neumann of Bavaria, who was carefully observed by several respected physicians, lived for 20 years without food, drinking only pure water and eating 1 thin communion wafer per day. Her death was accident-related, not from disease. Francesco Bernardone of Assisi is known to have frequently fasted, been a breatharian for 30 to 90 days at a time with no negative health results. It was after these long fasting or breatharian periods that he was seen levitating by his monks. Unfortunately, pure water and pure air are both in short supply on our planet these days, so becoming a complete breatharian may have to wait until a miracle of reversal in the Aquarian age. Meanwhile, becoming a fruitarian is a giant step forward for your body, mind, and soul. All of these paths to permanent good health, please remember, must be approached with caution and common sense. There are some health addicts who become so obsessed with the concept of vegetarianism, they want to turn their newborn infants into vegetarians, beginning with their first food. This is extremely dangerous. The infant has inherited the sins of the flesh from the parents and ancestors and can no more endure a sudden vegetarian diet than an adult. The same 3-stage course is safe, except that, according to my Hatha Yoga avatar, with infants and children, it should take the form of 2 6-year periods and a final 7-year period, with the same food regimen as given in the 3 5-year periods for adults, totaling 19 years of preparation from whatever age the child is when the program is initiated. Should the purification program begin at birth, then the infant should be fed all dairy products, all vegetables, fruit, bread, and cereals, plus fish and fowl, eliminating only red meat during the first 6 years, and so on, with the second 6-year period following the food intake of the second 5-year adult period, and the final 7-year period matching the final adult 5-year period. Meat-eating races have always been warlike and aggressive all through history, whereas non-meat-eating races have been passive and peaceful. As for hunting, I rarely enter into discussions with hunters, being an Aries. Too many Mars fireworks might explode. The excuse many hunters give to justify murdering wildlife is that they are clearing out the excess population. Otherwise, there wouldn't be enough food and the animals die anyway. Makes me feel that their thought patterns are only a fraction removed from finding murder a likewise practical and humane way to clear out overpopulated areas of China and India and the Americas slums. In a worldwide sense, mankind has always found war to be an ideal solution to clear out population. Nature herself is fully capable of solving her own problems without man's helpfulness, comprised of murder and killing. My Cherokee chief has a bumper sticker that reads, "Join the army, see the world, visit exotic places and meet interesting people, then kill them." I personally know several hunters who are otherwise kind, gentle, generous, and truly good people, possessing only this one blindness. Nevertheless, as much as I deeply and dearly love Colorado and my hometown of Cripple Creek, I managed to go to California or New York during hunting season there. My favorite Cherokee Indian legend, which is really a true story passed down through many generations, is about the vegetarian Indian called Snowfoot, who would kill no living creature. When the deer in the forest near his tent grew older and sensed their death was near, they came to Snowfoot, knelt down before him, gazed at him for a long, still moment with their gentle brown eyes, then died. It was their way of offering him their dead bodies for use in making clothes to protect him against the cold, and moccasins for his feet, in gratitude for not participating in hunting them down and allowing them and their families to live out their lifespans in the wilderness in peace. Now, here are some very helpful astrological guides for your general health. When you read the following, remember that your individually calculated and rectified nativity, which is the exact hour and minute of your first breath, contains your complete personal health picture. all the strong and weak links in your body's chain reactions. These sun sign indications are only general. Nevertheless, in approximately 80% or more cases, the problem areas will center in the parts of the body ruled by your sun sign. Not always, but usually. Just don't believe it's the whole story. For a complete health analysis, you'll need a carefully rectified horoscope and a competent person trained in medical astrology to interpret it for you. Wouldn't it be a blessing if that competent person could be a professional physician who has also studied astrology? Wouldn't that be simply ideal? There's small chance of your locating such a medicine man because only a few exist, as rare as the dodo bird, but we can dream, can't we? And dreams, don't ever forget, are the first step in manifesting wishes into reality. The sun sign rulerships of the body. Aries rules the head, face except the nose, the cerebral hemispheres of the brain. Taurus rules the neck, throat, larynx, tonsils, carotid arteries, and jugular vein. Gemini rules the shoulders, arms, fingers, lungs, thymus, and upper ribs. Cancer rules the stomach, diaphragm, breasts, and thoracic duct, lymph system. Leo rules the heart, aorta, the back, and spinal cord. Virgo rules the large and small intestines and the pancreas. Libra rules the kidneys, equilibrium and balance, sometimes skin by association. Scorpio rules the nose, genitals, descending colon, rectum, the blood, urethra, sometimes the back by association. Sagittarius rules the hips, thighs, liver, veins, femur bone, and sacral region. Capricorn rules the teeth, bones, the kneecaps, and the skin. Aquarius rules the lower legs and ankles, varicose veins, and circulatory system. Pisces rules the feet and toes, sometimes the lungs and intestines by association, and in reality, the entire body system related to leaks and the draining of fluids. What medicine calls the sympathetic parts of the body came directly from the astrological computations of Hippocrates. The sympathetic parts of the body mean that when particular symptoms occur in one part of the body, your doctor will look to one of the other three sympathetic parts to see where the trouble may have initiated. You can comprehend this easily by studying the drawings of the 3 astrological crosses on page 49. Notice that 2 of each of the 4 signs in each cross are opposite each other, 180 degrees apart in the horoscope circle, and all 4 signs in each cross are square to each other, 90 degrees apart in the horoscope circle. See the astrological wheel drawn on page 8. It defines the sympathetic parts of the body. Now go back to page 47 and study the body rulerships of each sun sign. Here are only a few examples of how it works. First, the cardinal cross. Look at it again. Then study the parts of the body ruled by these particular 4 cardinal signs. Aries rules the head. Libra rules the kidneys and bladder. The symptoms of Libra kidney or bladder problems often begin with severe headaches, which is Aries. Cancer rules the stomach. Capricorn rules the skin, among other things. When you take into your stomach food which disagrees with you or to which you're allergic, such as Cancer, your skin breaks out in a rash, which is Capricorn. A toothache Capricorn rules the teeth, gives you pain in the head and face, which is Aries. Aries and Capricorn are square to each other, just as Aries and Libra are opposed to each other. Now the fixed cross. Look at it again. Then study the parts of the body ruled by these particular 4 fixed signs. Aquarius rules the lower legs. Leo rules the heart, among other things. One of the first symptoms of heart trouble is pain in the lower legs. Leo and Aquarius are opposed to each other. Taurus rules the throat, neck, and vocal cords. Scorpio rules the sex organs, among other things. When a boy goes through puberty, a Scorpio sexual change, his vocal cords, which is Taurus, also undergo a change, and his voice deepens. Taurus and Scorpio are opposed to each other. Leo also rules the spine. One of the first signs of spinal meningitis is a sore throat, ruled by Taurus. Taurus and Leo are square to each other. Likewise, Leo and Scorpio are square to each other in the fixed cross. Scorpio rules the colon, among other things. Leo rules the back and spine. The symptoms of severe colitis or infection of the colon are often felt first as pains in the lower back area. Now the mutable cross. Look at it again. Then study the parts of the body ruled by these particular 4 mutable signs. Pisces rules the feet. Gemini rules the lungs, among other things. If you've walked into the rain for hours and soaked your feet, which is Pisces, you may come down with the flu, which could lead to pneumonia. Gemini rules the lungs. It depends, as I mentioned earlier, on the planetary positions and aspects in the birth chart. Sagittarius rules the liver and is square to Virgo, ruling the intestines. Liver ailments are first manifested through intestinal problems, and so on. These are only a few examples of the sympathetic parts of the body. Now the physical effect of the elements to which each sun sign belongs: fire, earth, air, and water. Find your sun sign if you don't know it already. Fire signs are Aries, the ram, Leo, the lion, Sagittarius, the archer. Fire signs are more likely to suffer from fulminating illnesses, high fevers, and maladies which strike suddenly in the parts of the body ruled by the particular sun sign of the fire element. Recuperative ability is usually strong and swift. Rarely do rams, lions, lionesses, and archers experience chronic or long-lasting illnesses. Earth signs are Taurus, the bull, Virgo, the virgin, Capricorn, the goat. Earth signs are more likely to suffer from deep-rooted physical ailments, taking years to develop and often becoming chronic for periods of time. Also, emotional depression. The recuperative abilities of bulls, virgins, and goats are powerful, but often slow. Air signs are Gemini, the twins, Libra, the scales, and Aquarius, the water bearer. Air signs tend to suffer from mental stress and psychological disturbances, nervous breakdowns, breathing difficulties, and circulatory problems. Recuperative powers are unpredictable. Water signs are Cancer, the crab, Scorpio, the eagle or scorpion, and Pisces, the fish. Water signs are prone to peculiar illnesses, difficult to diagnose and lingering in nature. Also severe melancholia. The recuperative abilities are completely self-controlled, whether or not this is realized on a conscious level. Remember that your individually calculated and rectified nativity, which is the exact moment of the first breath, contains your complete health analysis, all of the strong and weak links in your body's chain reactions. The foregoing sun sign and element indications are only general, although more than 70% of the time, the most recurrent problem areas and types of illnesses will occur in the parts of the body ruled by the sun sign, and be of the nature of the element of the sun sign. Just be sure you realize that it's not the whole story. Meanwhile, combining these sun sign and element indications with a numerological health analysis of the single number of your day of birth in the following interpretations will be most helpful, a surprisingly reliable guide, as you will see.